Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem on my Blitz game number 437. I had a really interesting Sicilian game this time, so let's get into it. My opponent played e4 and I play c5, the Sicilian. Knight f3, d6. These are all the main moves of the Sicilian. Of course, instead of d6, knight to c6 is a very popular alternative, as well as e6, but this is the main line, and now knight c3 is the rare move. What typical moves are d4, going for the open Sicilian, or bishop to b5 check, the Canal-Sokolsky attack, sometimes called the Moscow variation, that goes for a more of a closed position. Knight c3 is also another way to play the closed Sicilian. See, it's the third choice there, but it also leaves open the possibility of playing d4 at a later time and opening things up, which we will see in the game. Now, I could play knight f6. You'll see that's the second choice here. Typical move in the Sicilian, attacking the e-pawn, but the e-pawn is already defended. A lot of times the idea of the move knight f6 is to force this knight c6 move to block the c-pawn. He's already voluntarily played his knight to c3, rather. He's already voluntarily played his knight to c3, so I don't really have to play knight f6. I could wait on that move and decide where to place it later. So I go for the typical dark squared strategy you get in the Sicilian, with the knight on c6 and the bishop on g7 controlling these squares here. So now he goes for bishop b5, a little bit surprising. Usually the usual follow-up here is d4, or if they want to play a closed Sicilian, then d3. Bishop b5. And so we've probably transposed into some line of the Canal-Sokolsky, where I've played, he sort of encouraged me to play knight to c6, which is not the main move in that variation. So it's an interesting position, still with an edge for white. He could take here right away, but he just castles first. And here I play g6, but there's a very interesting possibility, actually is also present here, which is this move e5. I didn't even think about this during the game. But when you look at it, if I get the move in e5, he can go ahead and take my knight. I'll take back with a pawn. It'll control this square on d5 here. So I'll have really good central control. And this, and when I play e5, it always stops his idea of pushing the pawn to e5 and trying to open things up that way. So it's an interesting way to play. And yeah, it looks like it is the best move in this position. And also here, when I played g6, e5 was still a move that's very interesting to play in this case as well. Anyway, I was going for a different setup, like I said. It's just that e5 is an interesting possibility. It doesn't usually show up in Sicilians as a possibility. I guess because d4 has usually been played to open things up, so that changes the character of the position. Okay. So now after g6, now he plays d4, and we get into an open Sicilian. So he takes with the knight. My knight is already securely defended, so I can just continue with my development. And here, he doesn't have to take my knight. He did voluntarily take it, but probably best is just to continue developing. But he went ahead and took off the knight. Also, if I was playing this and I was going to exchange the knight, I would take with the knight on with the knight on d4, use that knight to take. He took with his bishop, which actually gives me the advantage of the bishop pair. I take back with a pawn, get a little more center influence by taking with the pawn, and now he gets his other piece out. I finish my minor piece development, and after f4, I could just castle here, I suppose. That's a good move. But there's a very nice tactical move here, which I was not thinking about. I was thinking more along defensive lines, but actually, because the way my opponent is played, there's an opportunity for me to go on the offense with the move knight g4. Notice that this opens up the bishop to attack his knight. So retreating the bishop, to d2 would allow me to take the knight. Retreating the bishop all the way back to c1 doesn't look all that attractive, although maybe it's a playable move. But after knight g4, I at least, I'll go ahead and put it on the board. After knight g4, he needs to defend the bishop, and then at the very least I can trade off this bishop and have the absolute bishop pair and a really solid position here. So this would be an interesting way to play. Also, I have the immediate idea of queen b6, putting pressure on this dark squared diagonal. So this kind of would bear out my whole dark squared strategy. It'd be a great way to play. And also this knight g4 move is typical in many Sicilians, so I should have been alert to that idea. And it's always most often with the idea of chasing away this bishop on e3. So should have thought of that. I just played e5. I was thinking, from a defensive point of view, if he opens up this f file, he could get an attack going against my king, and I wanted to put a stop to that. And you'll see this shifts the advantage back to black a little bit. After this exchange, I'm left with some awkward pawns here. And it shifts the advantage back to white. And he dropped his knight to f3. He should go to b3 here and leave the f file open and just try and build up pressure there. This move knight f3 is not the most accurate move because it blocks the f file. And so after these various exchanges, we get a position which is about even. And so let's continue on a little bit. There's another interesting moment coming up. h3. I guess he wants to stop my knight from coming into g4, but there was no need for that move, and I am starting to feel okay about my position. Rook a to d8 I played, putting my rook opposite his queen. Moves his queen over here, and now I play h6, kicking his bishop and forcing it to decide where to go. He should probably keep the bishop on, retreat back to e3. He goes ahead and exchanges here, which is helpful to me. Now I have the bishop pair, and both bishops are unopposed. And, my ragged pawn structure is still a liability, but it also has created some open lines for the rooks and the bishops. So, interesting. Rook a to d1, opposing my rook here. Bring my queen back to e7. a3. a5. I wanted to stop his b-pawn from coming forward. I had the idea here already of bringing my rook over and getting some pressure on the b-pawn. He comes out with his queen to c4. I go rook b8. He goes b3, so defending his pawn that way. I bring my other rook into the game, rook f to c8, defending this pawn and freeing my bishop up to move. And let's see, he goes knight a4. Cancel that. Knight a4. Ah, yeah, he brings this knight in. Maybe with the idea of coming into the c5 square, that's kind of interesting. I go bishop e6, cancel that. I go bishop e6, attacking his queen. Queen drops. Oh, queen goes forward to c5. I don't want to trade queens here. I want to keep the queens on and keep playing with my with my two bishops and see if I can get some good advantage with them. So drop my queen back to e8, and now he plays knight takes e5. So this is the first real interesting tactical moment. The knight e5 is a big mistake, and the move I played to try and take advantage of it, I played bishop takes b3, unleashing a discovered attack on the knight. But there's an even more precise move after knight takes e5. Black has a really wonderful tactic that's just game-winning, and it's a simple tactic. It's once I point it out to you, you'll say, "Ah, how obvious!" But it's not so easy to see maybe in advance. So this is a good opportunity for you to play spot the tactic. So why don't you pause the video, imagine knight takes e5, and then what is black's reply to that? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away. He played knight takes e5, and I can win a whole piece with the move rook to b5. It's one of these. It's just a skewer. His queen has to move out of the way. The knight is already under attack from the bishop, so I'm just winning that knight. There's no way out. The knight has no good tempo moves here. He's got to move the queen. So queen to e3, and rook or bishop takes knight is just winning a piece. So interesting tactic. And why is that hard to spot? It's maybe because it's not the most common tactic, this sideways skewer with the rook. But, it's if you want to increase your alertness for tactics, always be aware when you put your pieces on a line, whether it's a horizontal line or a vertical line. If there's rooks on the board, then there's a possibility of a pin or a skewer. And also, if you put your pieces on a diagonal line, then you have to, and there are bishops on the board, then you have to watch out for skewers or pins along the diagonal. So anytime your pieces are in a line, do a quick tactics check to see if there's any way to take advantage of that, or any way for your opponent to take advantage of it so you can avoid it. Okay, so I didn't play that way. I didn't spot that tactic either. My opponent missed it and I missed it. But I had already been thinking about this other tactic, bishop takes b3, grabbing a pawn and attacking his knight. And now he should just retreat his knight to b6. Oh, that's not a retreat. That's a counterattack with knight to b6. Now, this is a very interesting tactical way the computer found to play here. Knight to b6. And then if I grab here, queen takes, and then can't I just grab this knight? Oh, I lose my bishop. Bishop takes c2, c1. I guess I get a bunch of pawns and sacrifice the exchange, and it's still good for black. Interesting. So that's a tactical way for white to try and defend knight to b6 there. He tried another way. He tried knight takes g6. An interesting sort of idea. If I take his knight now, he takes my bishop, and both of us have grabbed a pawn here. But in addition to grabbing a pawn, I was also threatening his knight. So now I can get 2 pieces for a rook. I play bishop takes a4. That's 1 piece. He can throw in this check, supported by his queen. The king has to move. Probably h8 was a little better because the king is subject to checks there. Okay, and now he grabs the rook. I get back. So he's given up a bishop and a knight and won a rook. So if we count the material at this point, there are going to be some pawns coming off in a minute, but just right at this moment, he has 5 pawns, I have 4. So he's got a pawn and a rook against 2 bishops, which is actually in favor of the bishops. The bishops are stronger than a pair of bishops are stronger than a rook and a pawn, sometimes quite a lot, particularly in the endgame when the lines open up. So, well, let's go forward. He starts taking pawns. He grabs over here on a5. Good way to reduce my winning chances. This allows me to take on c2. I wasn't playing the most accurate move here. I drop my bishop back this way and block his queen out, still keeping an advantage. And he helps me out here by playing c4. He wants to clear this row for his queen to come across, but he gives up an important pawn, and this is a good square for the bishop defending my f-pawn. So anyway, he gets in the check he wanted, and I drop my king back to g8, and then rook to f2. My bishop was attacking his rook, so he saves that. And now I want to get into actually a pure endgame here, I think. I'm going to, well, first of all, I'm going to contest the d file. He trades. Moves his king to h2. And now I'm looking for a chance to trade off queens. So I start with some checks. Plays g3. And this does allow me to win another pawn. So we're still in the situation where he's going to be able to get one more pawn back. We're going to still end up in a situation where white has an extra pawn, but let's see, he goes with queen c8 check. Yeah, that's how he gets the pawn back. King h7 again, and queen f5 check. I thought for a minute here I was going to have to be settle for a draw, because when the king is here and he gives this check again, I didn't want to block with the bishop. Thought this might be an awkward pin, although the engine says bishop f8 is playable too. But then I realized I could block with the queen, and now he grabs the pawn, and I am safe from the checks for the moment. Okay, I retreat my bishop here. He drops his queen back to c1, and so this is the moment where I decide to force the trade of queens and go into the endgame. Still not sure it's completely winning. It's not always easy to win these things, and the engine does not approve. So, but I looked at this engine line earlier. So, say for example, bishop to e5 here. And the question is, how does black ever make progress in this position? It's white has a nice compact formation here, and so he brings his queen over to defend. King g7. You'll see that I can gradually move my pieces forward. h5, king g2, queen c8, h4. So we get into this kind of situation in the beginning. I guess with threats I can kind of force his pawns to come forward and then blockade them, so that takes away some of his counterplay. Let's see, queen to b8, lining up with this pawn. Rook to d2, it's adequately defended. Queen to b7. Anyway, you see it's a really slow process. King to h2. Queen to e7. See if I can get to a point where it appears I'm making any progress at all. He just goes back and forth here. Bishop to c8. Anyway, I pursued this line for a long time, and it did appear that I could sort of gradually creep forward, but at some point, the engine seems to have maximized the position, and it may be that that white just has a blockade here, and there's no way for me to break through. So I think even if this isn't the move that's approved of by the chess engine, this queen c8 move I think is the way to play this position. Get the queens off and go for the endgame where you have bishops against the rook. And this is pretty much forced. It's a double attack. Queen and bishop are attacking the pawn, and I'm also attacking his loose queen. If he just moves the queen out of the way, I could try rook c2, huh? Queen d7. Yeah, rook c2 is a try. Anyway, he went for the trade, and now I get to I have a bit of a plan of how to make progress. So let's go forward a few moves. He starts kicking my pieces around, and I get into this formation. You saw this in the other line too. This is just a great way for the two bishops to control a lot of squares in the center of the board, and also they defend each other. A neat feature of the bishop pair. Notice when he attacks this bishop, I can counterattack his rook, which is often a feature of the bishops. They often have these counterattacks available, and now this bishop controls the squares where the rook might attack my bishop from. So this bishop is anchored. This bishop is momentarily can't be attacked, and he's got to move his rook. He goes rook a5. But anyway, it's important to use these qualities of the bishop. I start pushing my pawns forward. I fix his pawns, and now he can't move his pawns forward anymore. He's going to be limited to king and rook moves. I get my bishop to a secure square. So both bishops can be protected by pawns, and they also protect the pawns at the same time, and they have targets. So the next step in this endgame, after having fixed the structure over here, is to get my king into the game. And this is where maybe white could draw, possibly. He moved his rook away at this point. I was thinking he's got my king cut off. How am I ever going to make progress? So, but suppose, white does something else. Suppose he just sits still in this position, just moves his king back and forth. I can bring my king over, and then I can use my bishops to chase his rook. And we'll see something like this in the game. The rook goes, well, no, let's say the rook goes back here to try and keep me imprisoned. Then I can drop my other bishop back, and now I've made a path for my king to get into the game. If he goes back to d1, I can just come in like this. Let's see, can he stay on this file? Bishop to e5. Yeah, I can just start marching my king up. Actually, this isn't entirely clear, is it? I mean, I can't go to this square, and he controls this square. His pawn there, and these squares are under control. Bishop to d4. Ah, yeah, I can move my bishop up this way. Yeah, so maybe I can just kind of creep forward. If he attacks the bishop, I can put my king here. If he stays here, I can come up this way. So it looks like I can break into his position in one way or another. So, but I think that would have been a more stubborn resistance, if he just tries to keep my king in the box. He played rook a5 right away, and now I get my king out. And, of course, my king is cut off along this file at the moment, but I can bring my king over to attack his rook. And what's nice is notice how the bishops and the king are controlling all these squares that the rook might go to. It cannot stay on that rank at all. So these bishops, and also the bishops are well anchored, so he doesn't get any tempo moves attacking them. And now my king can come up, and I can creep forward step by step. Once again, the bishop is taking away a square from the rook, so it can't go to any of these squares, and has to give up the fourth rank as well, and my king comes forward again. And my bishop goes back to its anchored point, and I can just keep making progress this way. I use my bishops as shields and as devices to drive his rook away, and eventually I get to this position where he can no longer defend the pawn, and so this is how I can make progress. Anyway, he I think he ran out of time at this point. I don't know if he resigned or ran out of time. I forget. But this is where the game ended, and it's interesting. The engine is only giving a -2 advantage. I thought this was clearly winning at this point, but maybe he can still blockade. Say king f2. I take rook e7, staying here. Maybe I can't easily get to this pawn now. It's always I want to use my bishops. Now, yeah, my next task is to try and get my king to this square, but maybe he can harass my king from behind. Anyway, it would go through a long phase of maneuvering again to try and pick up another pawn. I don't yet have a passed pawn. That's what I really need. Is I need to create a passed pawn to break through at some point. So let's see. The endgame ended right here. Yeah. So anyway, interesting endgame. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you again soon. Bye.